And as we intake what we just heard, this power of now, let us close our eyes. In this moment of now, the power of now, it's every moment that is the power of now. How wonderful is that? That God is and all there is. So therefore, unity are all these moments in all of us, connected in, through, and as each one of us individually and collectively. We are so fortunate to be right here and right now and ready to be listening to what not only we hear to hear it, but to actually do something with what we're listening. And this listening is guiding us today, right here and right now, through this whole service, through our soon-to-be Minister Neil, to Adrian and all he's done, and Carrie, everything to make this service a beautiful place to listen and be and do and have. I am grateful to be here in this moment, declaring this so, and you and I can affirm and aver by saying, and so it is.
At Center for Spiritual Living Beaumont, we believe in spiritual living. Above all else, it is a philosophy that teaches us how to think and not what to think. We invite everyone to practice this philosophy by living in principle. We believe that God is all there is, and each person's relationship to God is a personal one. Every person, place, and thing, and all the space in between is not only an expression of God, but God itself. All love, peace, and beauty that is God exists within each person right now. Together we are all connected as one. Our faith allows us to apply this philosophy to our lives in every moment of every day. As we live in love, we see love revealed and flowing through the world around us. We act as citizens of this spiritual community at all times. This is how we think. We believe in God, we believe in ourselves, and we believe in you because we believe in spiritual living. We are the Center for Spiritual Living Beaumont.
All right, all set. Good morning. I am happy to be back with you this month as we are continuing Center for Spiritual Living's yearly theme, which is Timeless Wisdom, Evolutionary Vision. This month, our theme is Going Further Together, and as you heard Reverend Phil Yoon say about the African proverb that reminds us that alone we can go faster, together, we can go farther. So what I want to talk to you today about is the idea of divine community. And when I heard that you guys were having your co-creation process today, I said, wow, that's just synchronicity because, there's only one mind. Because our whole topic this month is about this idea of spiritual community. That when we come together, we can go farther together in divine community. In the Buddhist tradition, spiritual community is so important that it's actually one of the 3 vows that every Buddhist takes when they become formally a Buddhist. It is called taking refuge in the 3 jewels. And the 3 jewels are the Dharma, the teaching, the Buddha, the teacher, and the Sangha, the spiritual community. So I want you to think about that for a minute. What does it mean to take refuge in spiritual community? That means that the spiritual community is a safe place where we can come together to recognize each other, to look deeply into each other's eyes and say, I see you. I recognize the divine in you. And I am here to walk this life's journey together. I will celebrate with you when life is good and remind you of your divinity when life gets challenging. So there's a famous story about a man who's walking down the streets and he falls into a hole. And the walls are so steep that he can't get out. And a doctor passes by, and the guy shouts up, "Hey, you, can you help me out?" The doctor writes a prescription, throws it down the hole, and moves on. And then a lawyer comes along, and the guy shouts out, "Hey, you, I'm down in this hole. Can you help me out?" And the lawyer writes out a lawsuit, throws it down the hole, and moves on. And then a friend walks by. "Hey, Joe, it's me. Can you help me out?" And the friend jumps into the hole. Our guy says, "Are you stupid? Now we're both down here." And the friend says, "Yeah, but I've been down here before, and I know the way out." Now, there are people like this in every spiritual community. There are those of us who are just passing by, and we throw a couple dollars in the plates in the offering, and we go about our day. They come to see their friends, they come for the potluck, they come for the social activity. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But they aren't in the hole. They haven't taken that leap. They haven't gone deeper into the spiritual practice, into the spiritual community, where you get to meet those friends that say, "I've been there, and I know the way out, and I'm willing to walk with you through this life." That is the safe harbor. That is taking refuge in a spiritual community. That's showing up for each other, to live a spiritual life. I had this class this weekend in ministerial school with Dr. Jesse Jennings, who you may know as having an article in the Science of Mind teaching, or the Science of Mind magazine. And he is a walking history book about the science of mind and this thing that we call religious science, and the history of Ernest Holmes and how this spiritual community came to be. And I'm paraphrasing, but he talked about how it's a common question that we often greet each other with, like, "Oh, how long have you been in Science of Mind?" Right? And he said a more important question might be, how long has the Science of Mind been in you? Science of Mind, at its core, which is the name of our philosophy, Science of Mind at its core teaches three things. These three things sum it all up. We teach that the oneness of all life and healing means healing any sense of separation between us and our source, and healing the belief that anything needs to be healed. And the third thing we teach is spiritual practices to help you do those other two things. The oneness of all life, healing any sense of separation between us and our source, and healing the belief that anything needs to be healed, and the spiritual practices that help us get there. That is what this thing called spiritual living is about. That is why we are called the Center for Spiritual Living. So my quality often follows a familiar pattern. Not always, and not everyone. But the pattern is called the 80-20 rule. 20% of the people in this spiritual community are in the whole. They are deeply committed to this spiritual community. They give of their time, their talent, their treasure. They sit on committees. They take classes, even when they've taken them before. They volunteer. They reach out to other members to check in on them. And their financial support is what keeps the lights on and the doors open. One of the first times I ever came to this spiritual community, when I first joined, so many years ago, I had this conversation with one of the people in the congregation, and she was telling me about all the frustrations she was having in life, and how she had this challenge and that challenge. And I sat with her, and we prayed. And I mentioned that I was getting ready to teach a class. And she said, "Oh, I took all those classes 20 years ago. I know science of mind." And I thought to myself, really? Because you just spent 20 minutes complaining about your life. Okay. And I want to be clear, this is not about guilt or shame. First, it's about gratitude. This has been a couple of topsy-turvy years for the spiritual community. In the midst of a global pandemic and the loss of your spiritual leader, there are these people who have continued to jump in the hole and do the deep work that allows this spiritual community to continue to be here for the other 80%. And for all the people who walk through that door for the first time next week, who will have their lives transformed by this teaching. So first, it's about gratitude. When is the last time that you have looked at one of the leaders of this community and said thank you? If it has been a while, you might want to reach out to them. They have been doing a lot of deep work in the last 2 years and the last year to maintain this spiritual community. The second thing it's about, though, is about imagination. What if those percentages were flipped? How could this community grow and have an impact on a world that needs what we teach? The oneness of all life and healing. How could this community grow and have an impact on a world that needs our teaching if that percentage was flipped? If 80% of this community jumped in the hole and was really committed to living this teaching, supporting this community, to reaching out to another, to serve and to lead each other. Look around you in this room. The people who are sitting around you. If they weren't here, would you notice? Would you call them and say, "Hey, I didn't see you on Sunday. How's everything going? Everything okay?" Do you support them and actively engage in their life? Divine community is about much more than one person entering a physical or digital space and another person entering. It's more than about two people walking into the room together. It's about the alchemy, the magic that happens when two or more people are gathered together. In science, they call this the emergent quality, right? I have two things, and from those two things, a third thing emerges that wasn't there before. In the Bible, it says, "Where two or three are gathered, there I am." The I am, of course, being God or Spirit. That is that emergent quality. That's why we come together in spiritual community, because wherever there are two or three of us gathered together, there is this third thing that shows up. That is Spirit. That is God. In baking, they call that the cake. Right? You have the milk, you have the eggs, you have the flour. And from those three things, a third thing emerges, which is not like any of the other three things that went into it. That is spiritual community. But it takes every single part of that cake showing up for that emergent quality, for that next thing to show up. In Science of Minds, we believe and we know that there is a spiritual idea, a spiritual ideal that exists both for our lives and for all of creation. There is this thing that is perfect, that is untouched, that is unblemished, that is within each one of us, that can never be harmed, that has never been hurt, that is not affected by all of the effects and worldly things going on around us. And the same is true for this spiritual community. There is a spiritual idea, there is a spiritual ideal that exists in the mind of God for this spiritual community to be everything that it can be. Back of every spiritual form, every physical thing that we see in the world, all of those physical things are in the process of returning back to spiritual form. There is this thing within each of us that is peaceful, that is pure potential, that is infinitely loving and infinitely giving. There is a spiritual idea back of everything. But we are also living in a physical world, in human bodies. And we forget. And we hurt. And we change. And we worry, and we lose the things we love. Maybe this is another place where the 80-20 rule shows up. Do we live in a world of effect 80% of the time and live in that spiritual awareness 20% of the time? Do we spend 6 days a week living in the world of effect, of hurt, of confusion, of physical change? Or do we spend 80% of our time living from that spiritual place, that spiritual ideal, that spiritual idea that is perfect? This is part of the job of spiritual community. Because when we go out into the world, that tells us that there is this world of effects that is chaos, and there is drama, and there is pain, and there is loss. And then we come back to spiritual community, and you look around the room at the people around you, and we say, we see you. We know who you are. We recognize your divinity. It is about gratitude and imagination. So I know that after our gathering here this morning, your practitioners are going to be doing some exploration and some co-creation with you around the idea of a new spiritual leader. And while I'm up here, let me just say, from a couple of people, I have been honored and humbled to have been asked on a few occasions to step into that role. However, as much as I would love to do that, the cake is not yet baked. And will not be for another year or two. And I would be doing both this community and myself a disservice if I tried to step into that role while my attention and energy is still in ministerial school. But as you, as a community, gather today for that conversation, I hope to see more than just the 20% showing up. I hope you commit to jumping in the hole and going a little bit deeper and showing up a little bit more. To giving your time, your talent, and your treasure to support this beloved community because it and its mission and teaching are worthy of that support. Maybe the question needs to change from how do we attract and find the perfect spiritual leader to how do we become that divine community that will be attractive to our next spiritual leader. It's almost like there's one mind. Yes, ma'am. So I said maybe the question needs to change from how do you attract and find the perfect spiritual leader to how do we become the divine community that will be attractive to our next spiritual leader. Are you that divine community? I heard this quote from the Science of Mind textbook that I want to close with this morning. I heard this quote last week in the talk at Riverside, actually. And it just sent off some alarm bells in my head, and I said, I need to share that next week. So what I did is I took this passage from the Science of Mind, and I changed it from first person to third person. So this is now about your spiritual community. And I'm gonna read it 2 times. So the first time I'm gonna read it through, and then the second time I'm going to invite you just to know it within you, and put your hand over your heart and just silently affirm this with me. And I'm assuming it's up on the screen. Yes. So I'm just gonna read it through one time. And the places that are in parentheses are the places where I change the point of view. I know there is a power for good which is responding to this spiritual community and bringing into our experience everything that is necessary for our unfoldment. This power for good uses every part of our community's experience, the joyous and the challenging, the pleasure and the pain, to guide us into a deeper awareness and knowingness of itself as Center for Spiritual Living Beaumont. In God, nothing is wasted. All of our experiences are used by the power of good, enabling us to help others and to bless the whole world. And now I invite you just to place your hand over your heart, close your eyes, and just affirm this with me. I know that there is a power for good which is responding to this spiritual community and bringing into our experience everything that is necessary to our unfoldment. This power for good uses every part of our community's experience, the joyous and the challenging, the pleasure and the pain, to guide us into a deeper awareness and knowing of itself as the Center for Spiritual Living Beaumont. In God, nothing is wasted. All of our experiences are used by the power of good, enabling us to help others and bless the whole world. And so it is. And now I invite you to join me into the consciousness of prayer. Recognizing with me that there is this one presence, this one principle, the presence which we call love, the principle which we call law. It is all that there is. It is perfect wisdom, perfect action, perfect intelligence, and perfect love. It is that spiritual idea, that spiritual ideal, which is back of everything that I see and everything that I don't see, everything that I know and everything that I don't know, is taking place in this vast field of perfect potential, of perfect peace, of limitless giving. And I know that I am not separate from my source. And I know the same is true for you this morning. You are not separate from this source, which we call God. It is right where you are. And it is using all of your life's experiences, all of the joy, all of the pain, all of the confusion, and all of the mystery of your life to bring you into this moment, to bring you into alignment for that highest and best good. That is God. That is love. That is perfect wisdom. And so I speak my word for each one of us this morning, knowing that because we are not separate from our source, whatever there is in the appearance of need this morning, that need is already fulfilled. It's already right where you are because God is present. God is present. All of God is present. And because I know that that is true, I know that any sense of separation is now healed. Any sense of anything needing to be healed is now revealed as being one, as being God. And so in great gratitude, I just celebrate this community. I give thanks for all of the ways and the people who have stepped up into leadership in the past year and the past 2 years. As we move through this time of transition and becoming and visioning, I know that they are the hands, the feet, the heart of God, and they are the heart of this community. I give thanks for every single person who has walked through those doors of this community, saying a sacred yes, being willing to go deeper, to be willing to practice the principles and the presence of God in their life, to show up just as they are, willing to go forward, willing to grow forward, willing to show up in this spiritual community and be seen and to see each other. I'm grateful for the practitioners this morning as they lead this community into that workshop, into that process of co-creation and revealing that next and highest idea, which already exists in the mind of God for the Center for Spiritual Living Beaumont, knowing that it is perfect. It already is. And we are just simply looking for ways this morning to open up to that idea, to remove any obstacles that are standing in the way, and knowing that it all will unfold and is unfolding in perfect divine right action. And so I release this word into the law, knowing that that law reflects back to it everything that we have placed in it in perfect ways and in perfect timing. And I simply say, and so it is.
Thank you for joining us for our Sunday service. Please remember to like, comment, and share this video on Facebook, YouTube, and any other social media you are a member of. To donate to CSL Beaumont, you can text GIVE to 951-420-6909, or you can visit our website at cslbeaumont.org and click the donate button at the top or bottom of the page. You can also mail your donation to CSL Beaumont, 802 Maple Avenue, Beaumont, California, 92223. Have a blessed day.